Hello, welcome back to Bindwaves, a brain injury network podcast. Today we have here is Karl and Rick. So we got a request for y'all to meet the rest of our team. So we are going to start introducing them.
Welcome to Bindwaves, the official podcast of the Brain Injury Network of Dallas. I'm Brian White, Bind's Executive Director. On each episode, we'll be providing insight into the brain injury community. We'll be talking to members and professionals regarding their stories and the important role of Bind's Clubhouse. We work as a team to inspire hope, community, and a sense of purpose to survivors, caregivers, and the public. Thank you for tuning into Bindwaves. Let's get on with the show.
So, as Brittany said, hi, I'm Carrie, brain injury survivor, and we've got Rick and Karl. Rick is our sound engineer. He's getting a break today. He gets to be on the camera instead of at the computer recording us. And Karl, who writes the descriptions for episodes. So we're just going to kind of jump in and get to know both Rick and Karl a little bit. I think they've both been on the podcast. You probably heard from them before, but we'll just get a little bit. Rick, tell us a little bit about how you got your brain injury.
Yeah, this is way back in 2007. And I started having like a series of headaches that were it wasn't like an everyday thing, but every maybe month or so, I would just have like really severe, like worse than a migraine, splitting, and then like sick to your stomach and stuff. And I thought, it was just flu type symptoms. So then after, I don't know, maybe fourth or fifth time I had something like that, it was really severe. And I was in the church service with my wife and kids, and I had to it was really bad. I had to leave and just go out, sit outside, and then it just didn't go away. It just kept getting worse. And so I was really sick all day, not really nauseous. And so that was really the time I was like, you know what, there's got to be something wrong. These are not normal type headaches. And I learned later that it's not really normal to have like a headache that lasts that long, because it would be like all night. And I decided like the next day, okay, I need to see the doctor. So I went to see my physician, and it just so happened, I guess it was just providence, he had a brain aneurysm himself. I think a lot of physicians would have just chalked it up to flu type symptoms, but he kind of was a little bit more careful, and he said, you know what, it's probably a flu or whatever, but I'm going to send you for a CAT scan just to be on the safe side. And then the CAT scan revealed that there's something in there. I learned later CAT scans are not necessarily diagnostic for something like a brain tumor, but it can show what's there.
Sure.
It just can't show all the details. So then I was immediately sent like the next day or the next couple days for an MRI. That's where they inject you with slightly radioactive dye, and it kind of highlights all the blood vessels.
So are you like Spider-Man now?
No, don't. I wish. I don't have any like sixth sense and stuff.
I'm just kidding, Rick.
I wish I did, but I don't.
Well, I mean, you're really tall.
Right?
Oh, yeah. People just chalk that up like you're tall, so you must have like all these special powers. I do have special powers, but not from that. So as a result of that, then my physician sent me to because he had a brain aneurysm, he knew the head of neurosurgery at Baylor, Dr. David Barnett, and I ended up going to him, and then he was like, you know what, you could wait a little bit, but I wouldn't do it. I would go ahead and get this done. So he didn't push, but someone who wasn't urgent kind of got rescheduled, and I was like scheduled within a few days. And so I remember the last thing I remember was saying to my wife, if for some reason I don't make it, find a good father for the boys and stuff, because my sons were only like 2.5 and 4.5 at the time. And so the last thing I remember is kind of being wheeled in, and then they injected me.
And you still haven't woken up yet.
Exactly. And then a complete blackout for probably about a month, because I was in ICU. I don't remember it, but evidently I was screaming in great pain because not from the head, but I just got backed up just from the thing. And then also my shunt, which is basically a drain pipe that drains all the extra cerebral spinal fluid, that got clogged up. And so that put back pressure, and that's what caused what they call hydrocephalus. We don't know, but that may, because of the pressure on the brain, that may have done additional cognitive damage and just processing and caused some of the delays. I have some cognitive delays, but they are after a few years. I mean, they're much, much better now, so you can't necessarily tell by talking with me, but overall that's better. I did go back to work full-time at my previous job after 6 months of rehab, learning how to walk again and trying to learn how to think again, but I didn't last that long, and then eventually they fired me. But I had my ex-wife knew an attorney that was like a friend from school, and even though she was in music, he had been in music, but he decided, I'll go back and be an attorney. So he had, was familiar with doing that. He bought some time, and then I ended up with a position at the library, which was very basic. I was just putting books away. But the problem was I would have memory lapses. I would forget where I was, in the middle of something. And then also I have a visual scanning problem, something called left neglect, which means you can see what's on your left side, but it may not register in your brain. So sometimes I would miss things. Eventually, after actually several years, they fired me there. But at that point, I had just enough time with the city to get disability retirement with the city, technically with the city of Dallas, but they use the same system as the state. And then I guess the rest is history. And then I started at Bind coming, I think, 2015.
I don't know. I know you think I know everything, Rick, but I don't.
Yeah, Carrie mostly knows everything, but not always. But is that enough? Probably too much?
That's good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, Karl. So, your turn.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I had a stroke 6 years ago, and so I was in the hospital, and it turns out that there were 6 doctors above me, and my blood pressure was down to 20, which means we were almost out of here. But I was in the hospital about a month, and then I went to Pate for rehab. I did that for 6 months, every day, and I would have speech twice, working on my arm and shoulders and so forth. And then when the government decides that you're done, the government decides you're done. And so that's how I got into Bind, because there was a presentation made by Carl H. And I thought, this is a great group, what I want to do. And so that's how I got started into Bind. And this is my 6th year at Bind as well.
And so y'all both have, again, we were trying to introduce you guys. You are now part of our podcast team. Y'all are both members of bindwaves. So who wants to go first and tell us how you decided you wanted to do the podcast and what you do for us?
Well, I can't tell you the exact time. Carrie knows almost the exact days. But whenever it was, they kind of put out a request for, we want help with the podcast, and of different roles. And one of them was to be the sound engineer / camera person. And I kind of always enjoyed photography and so forth. And I always fancied myself as like a director or something. So I said, okay, yeah, that'll be good. But what I found is it's good for me in that with my short-term memory problems, and I kind of have tracking and focus issues, kind of like ADD, real bad, but from the brain injury, it helps me because I have to be methodical. Sometimes people have to remind me of stuff, but they're generally pretty patient. So that's nice.
I think I'm going to take that as a compliment, because I'm pretty sure I'm not always that patient with you, but no, but yeah. But so you feel like it's given you a new purpose? It's helped you with your memory and your focus a little bit more?
Yeah, well, if nothing more, I mean, it's definitely good practice to go through the procedure. And I'm not real big. I'm kind of fly by the seat of my pants type of person. I like to do things kind of spontaneously. So sometimes that doesn't always work. So it's good to have something with structure.
That's true.
I remember that was the biggest thing when I was in PATE rehab. I also, did you go to Anna?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carl also went to PATE rehab out in Anna.
That's right.
And I remember my therapist always said, you need structure. And that's something that I struggle with, and I need to create more of that for myself as well.
Well, and definitely Bind does that for us. It
Yeah,
gives
Bind
us that
creates
structure.
that, so that's helpful. And they don't let you get away with hardly anything if
No.
you get off track. So,
And with that, as you get off track, I'm going to take a quick little break and remind our listeners to hit that subscribe button, that follow button, that like button. Just click all the buttons, whichever button you want. Go ahead and click them all. And now we're going to get back to Karl. And Karl, how did you decide you wanted to get in the team?
Okay. Well, I've been writing for years. It was when I was a teacher, you had to write because you had to get articles started. So I did quite a bit of them. And then when I got my regular job after I quit at TCU, I went to Dr. Pepper, and I stayed there for 12 years, and I was mostly a developer of content, and I would also facilitate and so forth. And then when we were laid off, I got my own job, my own business, and I still continue to do writing for clients and so forth. So I've always enjoyed writing, and so this is what I do for our podcasts.
So this is like in your ballpark.
Yeah, it is. It's very comfortable doing it, but I will tell you that it's very different than it used to be, because what we're trying to do is write, of course, for an audience, and at the same time keep it personalized for the guest who is actually working with us. So that's important to do.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of our listeners probably don't understand, well, maybe if you've done podcasts, you do understand, but so Rick is like number one behind me and Brittany. We're number one. Rick's number two. I'm just kidding. But Rick is doing all the recording and sound engineering, and then he has to download all the files, and that's, again, we got to keep him focused to get that done. But if he doesn't get that done, then Karl can't do his job. So Rick has to do what he has to do to get the files downloaded so Karl can come in and listen. Karl's not always in here with us when we're recording. He gets to come in and listen after the fact and then come up with the description. So.
Right. And it takes about 25 minutes or so for every episode that we do. And so you're right, I do listen to it. And then the next job I have is actually getting a description going. There's a title we use first, and like a headline kind of thing. And then the next thing would be the description that you would actually see when you were looking at, for example, Facebook or any of the other tools that we actually have. One of the things I will tell you, though, is that I found the most important thing is to get the hook going, because what you want these people to be, of course, is be interested, excited, and so forth. And what you have to do is you have to get the right content to get the starting, or they're not going to happen very well. So that's important.
Yeah, and it might bring the other big hoop they had in like showtimes where they're like, shoot, get off the stage.
Yes.
But hopefully we won't come to that, because Karl is a really good writer.
Well, thank you.
He is, and we're going to give him a break. He doesn't have to write this episode. We're not going to make him write his own episode. We've got another person that's going to do that for us. So, but we're working. I mean, again, like we told you, when we first started this 3 years ago. Is that right? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Staff was doing all the jobs that now members are doing, and that's what we're most proud of in this podcast is that. And we're gonna continue on. We've got the editors are gonna come on next. Hopefully, we've got social media. We're trying to get it all, but I'm sure we've missed something. But
Of course, we have our meetings on Mondays where we try to see how we did, what kinds of things are coming up. We review the writing that I did and so forth. So that's the important thing we do for every Monday.
yeah,
Yep.
anything about that?
Yeah, and then we also discussed about like what our viewers want to see. So taking a little break now. So if you have any ideas that you want to shoot at us and you want us to talk about, just put it down in comments or notify us. So
Absolutely. So yeah, and that's bindwaves at thebind.org. If Brittany didn't,
yeah,
I'm used to saying all that nonsense. So, but yeah, Rick, Karl, what advice would you give that you learned on being the podcast that you would like other survivors to know? That I mean, these are out. I mean, Karl, you're a little bit. It's in your wheelhouse, but Rick, this is totally outside of your wheelhouse. So you've learned new skills. I think, Karl, you probably learned some new skills too. What advice would you give to other survivors that it's okay to learn new things and get out of your wheelhouse, get out of your comfort zone and kind of try something new?
and also how challenging was it to learn something new too?
Well, I thought I would be straightforward, but for me, kind of like I was saying, sometimes the little detail things will slip through the cracks, and then like sometimes I forget to start the cameras because we have to start recording the cameras, and we also do online podcasts, so we use a special software that runs with the internet and simultaneously record someone remotely, and also we have to record
Us, your co-host.
the co-host. That was the word I was looking for. Anyway, so we have to record them. I've actually forgotten to turn on the cameras before, although we did get it on the web because it's all connected. So I have to be careful not to forget things like that, little details.
And you're working on the step-by-steps, making them better.
Yeah, for some reason they want me to use like the steps.
Well, that's kind of what we do. We all have
Right.
processes we have to do. So
There's a reason for it. So,
There is.
you know, we're a ranger. We're going to forget. But then also it teaches us how to learn to read instructions and how to keep in structure, which you actually talked about earlier. So it
Well,
helps
right,
with
and
structure.
the problem for me is, I remember the old me, and no matter how much it happens, because it happens, it's not just that it happens here. Everything I do, like at home and stuff, I have to keep reminding myself, you have to follow through. But that was one of the mantras, I think, of when they had my therapist actually come to my house with Rehab Without Walls. They were like, you have to work on follow through. So that's something to think about. And then you can check it off when you've done it.
do we need to get you a new little board just so we can Rick check off everything?
Yeah, I have my checklist in my phone, but what I learned is you have to actually look at it and do it. That's the key. You have to look at it.
Like, do we have to put it on our shirts for you so you can look? You're like, we'll stand in order. It's like, okay, Rick, did you do this?
I guess we could because we have that T-shirt press now. So like anything could be like there could be like a little checklist.
Don't encourage him, Brittany.
Maybe someone can invent like a special printout surface on a shirt, and then you can actually dry erase it.
Okay,
Yeah.
bring it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing about brain injured, sometimes we get off subject and we can just go for a mile.
Rick can go for 5.
Probably.
But one of the things that were difficult for me and still is today are sequencing. Because what is going to be first, second, third, and so forth. And as I continue to write, as the episode is done, then what I have to do is I have to decide what am I going to put first, next, and so forth. And sometimes that's very hard to do for me. But one thing that I think is the most important thing, if anybody wants to do what I'm doing, is to focus on the listener. What is the listener wants to hear? What do they want to know? And remember that we only have so many minutes, and then after that, we have to get it down to one paragraph. So it's really important to realize that it's the listener that's the most important thing for us to do. And if we ever get off of that, then we're in trouble.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I agree. Yeah. And definitely that's what we're here for, is to encourage the listeners to learn about brain injury. And that's why we want as many members as we can get on here to be part of the podcast team, so that it's a little bit different than the normal work order day for the rest of the clubhouse. We're a little unique, but all our members on the podcast team are a little unique too. And yes, I'm looking at Rick right now when I say that.
Well, I know we all want additional members who are interested in this, and obviously, that we only have a few who want to, so there's a lot of work that we have to do, but I do hope that we have more members eventually who will be with our team and will be a member of the team here.
And I think we're working on that. And I want you both to know that I appreciate what y'all do for the team, because I couldn't, I just get to sit here and look pretty, me and Brittany,
Yeah.
But I could not do everything that we do on the podcast without you guys. So y'all do know that you're important, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. So
thank you.
Yes.
Rick and Karl, and again, like I said, we have had them on previous episodes as well. You can go back and find them. You can always email us and say, I want to hear more from Rick. And we will tell you what episode it is and where to find it.
Or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll hide it. It'll be a mystery episode. But no, we'll tell you.
But again, thank you both very much. And for our listeners, you can always, again, find us on Thursdays. We're starting the year off a little bit differently, as opposed to every week. We're going to be every other week. Because, again, it is a lot of work for our members to do. Our little brain injury heads can only do so much at a time. So we're going to kind of spread it out a little bit and give us some more time to get things done. But you can always contact us at bindwaves at thebind.org. You can find us on the website at thebind.org / I don't know which / it is, bindwaves.com. And as well...
And then don't forget to share, like, subscribe to our channels, and you can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast on all follows. And for YouTube, don't forget to click the notify button.
Absolutely. And Bindwaves at Bindwaves on Instagram. Please follow us. We're working on getting that social media better, so it'll be fun. We're trying to get more stuff out there. So thank you again, and until next time.
Until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Bind Waves and continue to support Bind and our nonprofit mission.
We support brain injury survivors as they reconnect into the life, the community, and their workplace.
And we couldn't do that without great listeners like you. We appreciate each and every one of you. Continue watching. Until next time.
Until next time.